Hi, Dara.
Hi, Serge. Good morning.
Good morning. So we're talking about this trauma program, the complex trauma program, and how you started getting involved with it.
hmm Well, initially, I actually came to the trauma program through working at the Garrison Institute, where I was introduced to focusing in general as a whole through David Rome. And I guess I got on a mailing list or something. I don't remember what it was, but I was notified about a one-day training that Shirley Turcott was going to be doing in the New York City area. And there was something about the way it was advertised in terms of it being a form or a way of focusing that was grounded in Aboriginal philosophy or Aboriginal paradigm, and that it had been developed in working with mostly Aboriginal communities in Canada. So that was kind of the hook for me, because being an African American woman living here in the United States, there's not a lot that comes through in terms of systems of healing work, in terms of how we're trained as therapists and whatnot, that don't originate from a more Western mind. So that was kind of the key, or the door opening, that had me investigated. And I did the one-day workshop with Shirley, and just as a result of experiencing it that one day, felt finally at home, like, this is what I've actually been doing as a therapist for many years, kind of intuitively and instinctually, I think, because I am a person of color, and having to synthesize and integrate what I learned in graduate school and whatnot in relationship to being a therapist. And a lot of what Shirley was doing and showing and teaching was what I was naturally doing with my clients. So it was an expansion from what I felt in terms of learning, focusing in general, having had just that one-day training with David Rome. So it was an expansion on that, and it spoke to me, I think, because of the Aboriginal foundation of it.
Yeah.
hmm
So really something that broke through the sense of all of these things that are European centric, and in that you found that there was something that deeply resonated with what you had been doing.
You were listening. Yes, that's great. Yes, I'd say that was so, because I've been in the field of mental health for about 25 years, and the first 20 or so of them I worked in the system, in the urban New York City system, which meant mostly I was working public system, which meant I was mostly working with people of color, working with people who were under-resourced, from under-resourced communities, working with people who were outside of whatever their individual challenges and difficulties were, mental health-wise, were also up against systemic oppression. And so, in working with clients that fall into that category, it's my opinion, or it's my thinking, my thought, that we're not just working with whatever the individual familial pieces are around their not wellness, but that we are also working systemically, because they exist within the system. And so a lot of therapy understanding and technology does not take that into account.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So something really that in that approach, that we're not just dealing with people who happen to have this or that problem or this or that trauma, but recognizing that it's within a framework, that's a system itself, there's an oppression that then will have an effect on individual people. And what you're dealing with is not just the person, but the effects of the system on this person.
That's right. The effect of the system on a person, and the historical effect of coming from a group of people who have been marginalized and are oppressed, whether it's from here or coming from other countries where colonization took place.
Yeah.
So there's a whole system of trauma that's historical in that relationship as well.
And so it makes a lot of sense, and hearing you describe it this way, that it's not just about, in a way, whether it echoes with you or any other practitioner, but it also is something that would help the practitioner understand the populations they're serving, in the context of agencies, in the context of people dealing with, populations that have been submitted to the effects of this ongoing or long-term oppression.
Absolutely. Which is the one thing to me that makes this unique. There may be other systems out there that are doing it, but I'm not aware of them, which doesn't mean that they don't exist. But in terms of what has come into the accessing here with us, that's I've seen this is the only one that does it that way, that synthesizes that with the other, with the individual.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that you've been involved with actually, offering the program, what do you notice in terms of the people who are taking this training, in terms of, themselves and the populations they serve?
That's a good question. So in terms of the people taking the course or doing a workshop or introduction, even in an introduction, even in a one day or an evening, people oftentimes walk away with a big piece for themselves. And what I've heard from people is that regardless of what ethnicity or culture that they're from, walk away with an expanded view of living and operating in our culture, in our system, not just as an individual, which is the Western way of thinking, right? Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, but not just as an individual, but how we are connected to other individuals and these whole systems that we live within. And oftentimes people, it's like a big aha. Yeah. It's like a big opening for them in terms of an expansion of self-understanding in relationship to that. So that's one thing that I've seen that's oftentimes almost immediate in even spending an hour or two in this conversation, much less over a period of a year where we're working various aspects of the program in relationship to different things.
So very interesting then you point out that there is this immediate sense of opening up, of expansion, and in a paradoxical way that's an expansion that we could describe as expansion in traditional, Western terms, but it's also something that actually is not just, I'm expanding, but that sense of deeper connection.
Yes, absolutely. And what I've heard from people who actually do the training and then take the work and start applying it either in their individual private practices or within systemic places, is the one thing that everyone speaks about consistently. It's kind of a two-parter, is the efficacy of this work in terms of velocity, in terms of people not getting stuck in months and months and years of therapy around issues, that there's a velocity that healing that happens with the healing in utilizing this system. And the other piece that people talk about is the real compassion component of the work, and that it's really it's really grounding for people in terms of connectedness. And it's actually the connectedness, whether it's connectedness in terms of the interpersonal or connectedness in terms of the resolution of the trauma in the body, as opposed to it being something cut off or split off, or something to hide from, or something to ignore, or something to not address, that people are able to move in and walk where they need to walk in order to have the resolution of the traumas that may be even individual traumas that are not just systemic traumas.
Yeah. So that in a way it's not just about the story and, that context, but essentially it works. And that's the powerful part is it works and it works fast. And it works by that sense of reconnecting people, from that sense of disconnection with their body, with their trauma.
Without re-traumatizing, in terms of actually, when I talk about resolution of the trauma, I'm talking about actually having flashbacks be resolved, and almost like it allows the person to then see themselves and their living the way that they've been living outside of the shroud that was over it. So that they can see clearly what's going on, and then address it and take whatever steps are necessary to dissolve it with the support. One thing about AFOT, Aboriginal Focusing Oriented Therapy, is that it is client-centered, but therapist-driven. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and as you point out, the result is that the clouds lift, and then there's that clarity.
Yes, a clarity and an energy for forward movement. So because, sometimes insights are wonderful and necessary and great, but they don't necessarily always activate action happening.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the other piece that happens, that there's real movement in terms of action, volition.
Well, DaRa, thanks. I just want to take a moment to see if there's something else that you might feel would complete this very brief, introduction to the program as you see it.
I guess the only other thing that I would say is that I just feel very appreciative and honored for the opportunity to say a little piece about this, so that it can perhaps affect and effect more people who would become interested in engaging it. I think that, in these times, in this world, in our changing society and culture here in the United States, that it's a real commitment and expansion for therapists to start thinking about how to step outside of the paradigms that we've been utilizing for the past many years, and make our work and ourselves as the healers or the workers more expanded and wider in terms of our understanding, to work with people who don't come from necessarily the circumstances or the situations that most of our therapeutic forefathers base their philosophies and conclusions on.
Yeah. And what makes it easy is that people don't have to sign up for a whole training, but just can take, an introduction and just get a feel for it.
Right. That's right. And that exactly, because what happens is once you sign up, you come to the introduction. For some, it'll hit home, and they're on their way. And for others, they'll say, "Oh, that was interesting, but maybe that's not where I want to put my time and money right now." But at least it provides the opportunity for investigation.
Yeah. Great. So thank you, DaRa.
Thank you very much, Serge.